there's other movements happening. I mean, there's stuff happening, like an army of civilians in armor saying another step is an act of war, and we are prepared to go to war with our domestic enemies, which is our government, and to defend our Constitution. That's happening right now. I saw Jesse and I was like, you know what? If he's doing it there, I'm going to do it here. I'll do it by myself. I'll get this thing going. Whatever I have to do.
On board. And I started seeing what he was doing with Earth United, even though first understand and recognize what was done to them in the hospital. And when they see that and then they understand that, then you can take them to show them how that paperwork, how it is morphed and how it is controlling, because it's all based on the constructive fraud, as you eloquently said. First, it's the trespass, the very first thing. And that's why this is so powerful, because it's happened to every man and woman in this world. All of us have had this done to us.
So you're in, I can hear you. Welcome, Christopher from Warriors Call, and aligned with Earth United. Honored to have you. Thank you for joining. I know you've got a packed schedule and everything that's going on with the movement. Thanks for coming on and taking the time to just follow up with Jesse and his introduction and just keep this ball rolling. We're trying to get the exposure as much as possible in the States. And we want to be one of the leaders to get that 100K for the public court proceedings. So that's our mission too. So we're taking it very seriously, and we're right there behind you. So just know that. And we made it clear to Jesse, I'm going to keep getting him on as many podcasts and both of you as I can, as whatever you can spare to get on, to just keep the word out there. So thanks for coming on. Welcome, Chris. How's it going?
It's going great. It's a pleasure to be here. Sorry, I just got some things going off here. Let me just
by all means, do your thing.
Yeah. Is it JB? Because I didn't get an. I didn't. Is that why I call you JB?
Yeah, that's JB. I mean, that's me.
Okay, good.
It separates me from all the other first names from John's. I am Johnny, but
okay.
JB is the front name. And all my friends call me that too, so it's stuck.
Terrific. And you're located out in the United States. Whereabouts are you in the States?
Currently, I am in the South Carolina region, originally from New York, and just moved just like January, like the 14th of January, right before the whole COVID thing became, on the news. And it was like, I just got out of New York, like it was like a luck, and a little bit more than luck. It was more of like divine intervention that got me there. And it was a whole backstory that went with that, and really profound, because I was literally like just told, get out of New York. And this was in December. And I was like, you know what? It's 2020, new decade. I was like, let's just start everything fresh. Let's just, like get rid of all the past stuff. Things were going good, but I was still stagnant. And I said, you know what, let's just get anything that we don't want in 2020. Let's just leave it all behind. And I was like, well, let's just leave New York behind. And I didn't. Just ventured out to start a whole new wide open terrain, and just looked back now and I'm like, whoa, like that was something, because so much stuff has happened since then. Yeah. And it was just perfect timing, and I recognize it. So, we all have these, when we're light warriors, spiritual people that are trying to do the right thing, especially in times like these. Yeah, those things are not by accident, just like everything that's going on in your life, like how you met Jesse. I mean, I'm sure you have tons of stories, and they get more and more every day, right?
Yeah, they do. So that's I'm so glad to hear that you're out in New York, because I really feel bad for the people that are trapped in the central part of New York now. I mean, it's going to get very ugly for them, and it's just, I can't believe, JB, people are just sitting here allowing this to kind of go on, that they're just going right along with the narrative. They hear this little voice that comes out of an idiot box, a TV, and they just go on with it. That's the part that's really struck me. I mean, I know my head's been in the sand. I've been, not in the sand, but I've been, doing enormous research for all these years or whatever, but I knew that my fellow man was not aware of a lot of things, but I didn't realize how bad. I mean, I should have recognized from 9/11 the critical thinking that's gone off with people when you see these buildings drop. And it's never been done in the history before where that's actually happened due to a so-called fire. And, you can go into, I'm very well in depth in the 9/11 as well. That's what really got me going on this as well back then, because when that went off, it was like, what's going on? And then again, like things led to one thing to another. But yeah, I'm so
Yeah.
glad you're out of New York. Bad
It's
place.
funny.
Bad
It's
place.
funny you say that because it's like I couldn't the words couldn't come out any clearer to me. It's the same exact feeling where I'm just like, how are you not seeing this? Like, how are you not how are you still following this? It's like now you don't even have to be, de- well versed in any of this conspiracy. You just have to look at what's in front of you and
Exactly.
rise up. And I'm like constantly kicking and screaming, and to an extent where it's like you got to make it on your own. But I'm always like, come on, man, don't just sit there and accept what is happening. You have to resist. Like
Yeah.
this is not good. And if you can't do it now, like when? And it's like some of them I just feel like you're just at the point of no return, and we got to move on. Like the train's moving on without you. We
Yeah.
need the people that are kind of like on the fence, that are just need a little push to get over. But I
Yeah.
can't be dragging these people that are just completely indoctrinated and have been living their life. They just, that's it, that the power of the media and the power of what they have done with the propaganda. I mean, it's a very, very powerful tool, and it's gripped their entire souls, their minds, and
Yeah.
they will fight to protect it. They will fight to actually
Yeah.
protect their own imprisonment.
Yeah.
So it's move on. And Jesse and I, we spoke about it. It was like, you don't need everybody. I always say 10%. He's like less than that, 4%. But I always go with the 10%. I'm like 10%. That's a good number to go by. And
Yep.
if it's less, it's less. But let's shoot for the 10, and that's it. I'm just looking for the 10% of the people that connect with it, and that want to move. So this alleviates that whole stress of trying to drag people along.
Yeah, it's very trying times right now. And I mean, the critical thinking for a fellow man has gone right out the window. They just don't seem to have it anymore. Like you said, you don't have to be a researcher anymore. We're seeing all this enormous wrong and harm that's occurring in our world. At what point, as you said, so eloquently, what point do people stop and really look at what's being said to them and how it's affecting them? And that's the part that's really troubling to me, that the masses, and I don't believe it's the masses. Again, you're right on the money with the mainstream media, but also the mainstream media is a double-edged sword. They're always presenting to us all the bad side of things that are going on, and they're showing all this conflict. But I do believe, JB, that there are hundreds of millions of people like yourself and me that are out there. We have our heads screwed on straight. We know that something's wrong, but we don't have that vehicle. We haven't found that vehicle to come together to allow this conversation, this truth, because as you know, you get attacked as soon as you start bringing this stuff out. And that's the part that for me, it still gives me goosebumps now. Back in, I guess, October, November, when this whole thing was rolling out with the lie, so to speak, that we have in our world today, that's terrorizing everyone. I couldn't believe how brazen this evil was. For me, for people that have studied for a long time, and even if you haven't studied for a long time, you start to know it. But for me, it was a real huge moment back in October, because it was like I really saw this evil hand finally pushing the curtain out of the way and coming right out into the open in the world, and it's attacking people on every single front, and they don't know it, right? They don't understand how collective this cabal is, this incredible network that's, like I say, the people that are running this world. When you start to talk about it, people, they can't even deal with a 9/11 thing right in front of them, buildings coming down. Just look at the physics of that, right? Never happened before in the history. And, there's so much evidence around that. And yet that narrative has still been allowed to stay out there and carry on all this time. And we can't allow that to happen this time. That's why, all this conflict is going on. When you see the mainstream media, as you said there, it's, look what they're able to do to our fellow man so quickly, right?
Yeah.
They've offloaded, like, from these corrupt service corporations, what we call government. They're all corrupt. They have no lawful standing over anything that they're saying to us or putting in writing. But look how incredible, powerful the system is. As you said, they can simply put this message out there, and now they've got the people fighting with themselves. They've got us fighting at the store level, right?
Yeah.
With these masks and all this stuff. And these people are laughing their heads off at the top.
Yeah.
Right? They are able to manipulate the people so quickly. And that's the biggest fear. I tell everyone the biggest enemy that we have here is ignorance. And we got to find a way to break through that. So what you're doing here, I didn't hear from you till before now, and I hope we do many other shows as well,
Of
because
course.
I'll speak as many times as I can to get the truth out. And again, as you know, with Jesse, this isn't an I love us thing or an I love me thing. This is dead serious stuff that's
Yes.
going on here.
Yeah.
People got to get it.
Yeah, I mean, that's it. Like, once the decision is made that like this is it. Like, I mean, this podcast was originally about empowering people with through failure. The Fail Academy, it was about, finding the value in your failures and drawing strength from that. And it's great. It's a great message. It applies here. It applies to what we're doing. But once this thing hit, it was like immediately we are committed to defeating this enemy. This is our moment. This is our chance to actually break through and end it. So to the bitter end. I'll fight to the last breath. I mean, my life, I'm not concerned about those things and material and anything or recognition. I can care less, if as long as we get the job done. And we actually, and I will say this on the flip side of what we were just discussing in the masses, more and more and more people are waking up. It's becoming a powerful force now. I can see it on a daily basis. It's like we're turning a corner in a sense where people are just either they're fed up, they're ready, and they're looking. So this moment now is our moment, and I can feel the power of the great awakening, because those who aren't going to wake up are never going to wake up. But those, like we say, who are kind of on the fence and not really paying attention, they're paying attention now, and it's starting to happen. So I feel really good about what's going on. I know you guys feel really good about it. There's other movements happening. I mean, there's stuff happening, and I love it, because like I didn't just yesterday I did a video segment on this Virginia militia that's formed together. They've got like an army of civilians in armor marching down and basically saying another step is an act of war, and we are prepared to go to war with our domestic enemies, which is our government, and to defend our Constitution. That's happening right now, and more happening. So we're in a good spot, and people are listening, even though sometimes we feel like they aren't. But yeah, we're having an effect. So that's why it's keep going, keep pushing, because people want it. We're gonna, like you said, I was searching for a place, because I said to myself, I was like, I saw Jesse doing his Magna Carta video, and I was like, wow. I was like, it gave me some kind of idea, and I was like, you know what? If he's doing it there, I'm going to do it here. I'll do it by myself. I'll get this thing going, whatever I have to do, and I'll just follow along and see how the results that they're getting, and I'll just adjust to what they're doing. And that's what I said. I said, I'm going after the government now too. And then, of course, things changed. And then you came into the picture and you told them, listen, that's not going to happen. That's not going to work. But I do have a way that will work according to what you are doing, what you want to do. And so before we get into that real quick, I was looking for people that were looking for me, and like you guys were, I was like, we need to get other people on a platform together, expertise and this and that. You do your thing if it's your thing, but we have a hub that we can all interact, exchange ideas, exchange information, and stay connected and be powerful. So it was more than happy to see that Earth United, and there's some other groups that I'm supporting as well, that will eventually can all be on one kind of central platform. Really what I was looking for, and I found it. So I'm like, real quick, like what did you see? Like when you saw the same thing with me, like you saw the video and you were like, yes, this is what I'm looking for. Like, what was your Warriors Call doing prior to that as far as your plans?
Well, I was already underway. I was looking to do what has been brought out on the global level with Earth United is, again, a lot of changing went back on once Jesse and I love Jesse to death. He's a great man and what he's doing. And as you eloquently talked about there, yes, Jesse had put together the website there and he was moving along. And then I saw this video that he did with Common Law. It just comes up in my things. And it was just a random thing. Like, I didn't know who Jesse was before that. I clicked on starting to watch it. And what I got from it is that here's a guy that is really passionate. He's trying to do something really great. I mean, he put together a 17-minute, I believe it was, initial video. Unfortunately, at that time, though, the majority of the stuff he was speaking to in there was wrong, because he was, again, it's the language. People don't understand the simplicity between legal and lawful. And once I contacted Jesse in that regards, and we had the conversation, he got it really quickly. And that's the beauty is truth that as I teach people and I share with Jesse, is that when truth is present, very few words are required. So that's how it worked for me, JB, it was just a simple thing. I saw Jesse and I reached out to him, and I was only reaching out for Jesse because already at that time I'd had my website up fully running for like maybe about 3 months. So I was in the position, what I was doing in Canada here is I was already moving on this train that I was I call it the train that I created, so to speak, so that everybody could simply get on and they understood where the destination was at that public courthouse for us to bring these truths properly and lawfully, most importantly, because if people watching this don't understand the difference between legal and lawful, it's really simple. Legal applies to that which is incorporated, right? On paper. Lawful only applies to that which is unincorporated, a man, a woman, or people. The word persons is a trick word. Okay, that's what's been used by the bar, the legal system for a long time. Like, I mean, when I finish this interview today, I'll say to people, oh, I met this great person, his name's JB, he's doing these interviews or whatever. Well, you and I know what I'm talking about. I'm talking about the man in front of me, right? My fellow man, flesh and blood, great guy I've just met or whatever. That's what I'd be referring to. But when you walk into these legal worlds, their world is all, every word can mean 10 different things, especially in the word with person. Person means a corporation. It has the same rights as a corporation in their world. And when people understand that legal doesn't apply to them, that is a huge moment in their life. And then you have to show them, well, how these courts, are operating over us today, how they're establishing this legal jurisdiction over us if it doesn't apply to us. And that goes back to what we'll talk about here in the next little bit, the trespass. But to your question, that's how it worked with Jesse. Is I was just drawn to him, saw in his video, I reached out to him. It was only supposed to be JB to help, because I saw this production work that he's doing. He's pretty good with some of his productions here. I thought if I could coordinate with someone like that to work with me to get my whole thing was just to simply put out some very powerful, short videos to really start going viral to hopefully try and get the issue up. But then once Jesse came on board and I started seeing what he was doing with Earth United, even though the foundation of it was excellent because he was ultimately pulling people together. That's what he was looking to do. But the problem with all these sites, JB, and God bless everyone that's trying to do everything, is people don't have the solution. Okay, this isn't an I love me thing, because this solution, this truth that I'm bringing forward here into this world right now through Earth United, Warrior Calls, and your wonderful channel as well, it's so simple for people to understand because a trespass occurred against us all when we were born. And it's easy for people to see this. You don't have to be a lawyer to understand, that you cannot be bound to paper that was created unbeknownst to you, down the road. Like, I mean, when you and I are sitting here right now, the jurisdiction that we're in is no different than when we first came into this world with no paper attached to us. Right? That's what people have to understand, what that jurisdiction of law is. Once you go into a legal world, well, as you know, it's riddled with paperwork and all types of wording and that to confuse and convolute the situation. But when you understand, like I said, what happened at birth, and that's what Jesse got, which was beautiful, because the very first time that we talked on the phone, most people, if you told them, hey, you did a really great job, just the problem is that the majority of the stuff you were speaking about was just incorrect. And Jesse, God bless him, very honorable man. He was writing like crazy. And again, it's not an I love me thing. This is evidence that I've been working on facts through enormous work for over 20 years. And again, as you said earlier when we were talking, everything happens for a reason. So this time just came around. I met Jesse. We started talking, and then he got it right away so quickly. He wanted me to go on a UK call that was going on at that moment to introduce me to people, but we left it for a couple of days. Mm-hmm. And then the site had to change from that point, because it was no longer about, even though it's about bringing the world together under one hood, the first and most important thing to the world that we're bringing forth is the truth. We've got to give them that simple message. And that's why I said to Jess, I say to everybody, we can't put the cart before the horse. People are talking about, well, what court actions are you talking about doing? All this? No. You've all got to learn first what happened to you when you were born and why that is so important. It's simple, because it addresses and it wipes out all this fear that's going on here today. And it shows you the power that we actually have against all these draconian fines and rules and orders that are coming out from these people, our fellow man and woman, who are simply working for service corporations. Yeah. Nothing that comes out of their trap, JB, applies to you or I. Right? Unless there are wet signatures on any of their paperwork where we've consented or there's been a meeting of the minds and we've agreed to totally relinquish our rights to these people operating in a service capacity, within their corporation. That's all people need to simply understand, is you have to look at the government of the United States, the government of Canada, your provincial, state, whatever, municipal, local level mayors. They're no different than McDonald's or Tim Hortons or Burger King. They're a service corporation that's been created to provide services to we the people. Where it's a real rub in our face is these service corporations. We the people are paying them through all this, again, the unlawful taxation as well, but they are being completely paid by we the people to turn around and then act against we the people. So that's why this truth time has finally come, that we're going to talk about here today, because it's a big thing.
It makes more and more sense, every time I talk about it, hear about it, listen about it. It becomes, like you say, the basic, you're born. Get down to the very beginning of how we entered this world and the land we entered, and it started right then and there. And without us as an infant, without our knowledge, without our consent, our parents' consent or knowledge, they had no idea what they were consenting to. And so unlawful conversion is what we were transferred into: a document, paper, property, a number. And so now we are going to remove ourselves from that jurisdiction. And correct me now if now just without the movement, just say me personally as a man, I remove myself like you have, I'm sure have done. And how, like, see, you've done it, right? Like you've removed yourself from their jurisdiction, or you just continually do it. That's how it works. Before you answer, I'll just say, if I remove myself from the jurisdiction by myself and I know all the expertise on how to do it, I am no longer bound by their jurisdiction, their rules, their laws. I am like a sovereign being that has its own jurisdiction. Is that, or is it more like you've got to get, because Jesse was like, it's not a one-man thing. You've got to have the movement in order to make it actually happen. How would you explain it?
Yes, it starts individually with everybody. Again, it's always a state of mind. And I guess one of the key things that I need to put up front, because there is a lot to this, but it really is simple, JB, is the first thing, as I've shared with Jesse and everybody, is you must understand first who you are, right? You cannot know who you are until you learn who you are not. Okay. And that just takes a little bit of work. Again, my website, www.warriorcalls.com. I created that so that it's a very simple, see, I'm an open book, JB. I'm not one of these guys that graduated, whether it be college or university or even high school with these incredible grades. I'm like this brainiac or something. I'm right at the lower level of it. All right. I was always down because my background was in the music and entertainment industry. I had no use for history. And even though they're lying to you, it's being told in schools and that. But the ultimate thing is that once this, this truth came to my knowledge, it's very empowering for people to first understand and recognize what was done to them in the hospital. And when they see that and they understand that, then you can take them to show them how that paperwork, how it is morphed and how it is controlling and causing all this wrong and harm against our fellow man here today, because it's all based on the constructive fraud. As you eloquently said, first it's the trespass, the very first thing. And that's why this is so powerful, because it's happened to every man and woman in this world. All of us have had this done to us. So see, you don't have to, that's why I think it's a very powerful thing when we're sharing this with people for the or thousandth time, because they're able to truly, it affects them. It's something that they have the evidence from. And that's what all this documentation is, that they're able to look at and then simply have somebody show them, like myself and other people that are learning, this is what this documentation represents. Okay. And as you're right, for me, I mean, I've removed myself, I guess you could say, from, I don't allow them to have jurisdiction over me over the courts and stuff, but I'm still walking and living in this world. And I'm still interacting with my fellow man. Mind you, I did general contracting for 25 years and I stopped all of that, back in 2001 when my another initiative was going. But at the end of the day, this has really been my life's work, because when my initiative that I was launching globally, I realized wasn't going to do in 10 countries, then it was a big punch to the gut, my life's work. And I wanted to know why did that happen? And that's what led me to this truth here, JB, that we're talking about here today. Ultimately, first, I knew nothing about central bankers. And then once I started to understand the creation of money, even when you go to banks, even I've sat up here in Canada, they have a law enforcement agency called the RCMP, the Royal Canadian Mounted Police, and they're right across the country. Well, I sat with their top forensic accountants. This goes back now 15 years. This is after 9/11 and stuff. And I'd shared stuff with my contacts then. Back then I was in commercial lending. And these people don't understand the creation of money, right? They don't understand it. And that's very troubling when you understand this big scenario that's going on here, because the banks are directly tied to this trespass that occurs against us at birth. I had a client that some people might have seen on my shows that I've been doing, sharing this information on Thursday nights. It's a Maneri family, and they're called the Maneri family. They're farmers. And a long story short, they had their property basically is being stolen and terrorized from these people that are working for the service corporation called the Provincial Government of Ontario. And the top man that's behind this, his title is Attorney General. Don't ever be scared when you hear a term like that, Attorney General. Remember, it's no different than the top man or woman, JB, than of a legal department of McDonald's or Burger King. Are you going to be threatened by some guy that's writing to you from McDonald's and Burger King? Again, unless you've caused that man wrong or harm, you got nothing to fear, because if you got no contract with McDonald's or Burger King, it doesn't mean diddly squat what they're putting to you in paper. And that man or woman that's writing to you with the highest designation, if they call him the Attorney General of McDonald's or whatever, it's just a title. Okay. And another, I'm giving you some really big chunks here, is that people need to understand is that the minute in law, okay, the minute that you act in any other capacity other than a man or a woman, okay, you have no rights.
Mm.
You have duties and obligations, which your job description shows you do. Now you can switch your hat back and forth in the middle of the day. You could just be all of a sudden you're acting like the man again with some Bob or Susie in your corporation that's not maybe doing something right to you. But again, the police, the firemen, everybody from the court systems, they've all got duties and obligations. And it's powerful when you realize that and you hold their feet to the fire. You say, well, who has the right here at the public courthouse, for example? Who's the man or woman? You always keep it in the man or woman realm. Who's the man or woman that has the right to deny me access to this public courthouse?
Mm.
See how simple that was to say to you? Now you go back and you listen to that, and that's right. Who's the man? Is it a public courthouse? That's the first word we should talk about. Is it a public courthouse or is it a private courthouse? Oh, they're all going to tell you, oh, it's a public courthouse, sir. It's a public courthouse, Christopher. Come on in. That's right. And then you say to them, who's the man or woman here who can deny me access to it to administrate and seek justice? And they're going to say, well, there's nobody that can do that. That's right. So when you're making your filing, you never use their paperwork. I know we're going kind of all over, but I like to give people the...
keep going, because like my audience has been very, introduced to this. So it's good that you're just kind of throwing it all out there, because that's what we want to know. We want to get a bunch of different scenarios and reasons and whys and how this whole thing operates. So, and continuing with that, so like it's all about how you present yourself, how you answer their ways of addressing you. And once you nip it in the bud immediately, that's what shuts it down as far as you being now under their jurisdiction, you being now powerless to their authority. So once that's in court proceedings, but now, so people have to have jobs. So now in order to get their jobs, they have to follow along with their, the job requirements and fill out their applications. And, that's it. You're now an employee of this, which is okay. You could be an employee of this job, but that doesn't mean you are now no longer a man and no longer a sovereign being, right? So I work for this company, but when I'm outside of this company, I am in my own jurisdiction. Is that how you start carrying yourself?
Exactly. You understand, you start to understand the separation, right? For when you're actually acting in a role. And like I say, anytime you're acting as anything, you don't have any rights. You've got duties and obligations. And that's very simple for people to understand once they look at it. Again, at my website, I've laid it out. I'm showing people the importance of the words, as you've probably already heard about. The 3 words for me that became very powerful is trespass, property, and who. Because it doesn't matter what paperwork's being put in front of you, that one word's going to come up. Who? Who wrote that? Right? Because obviously if someone's trying to apply jurisdiction over you using paper, then that man or woman that's in front of you, they must be under some belief that the man or woman that wrote that, whether it's one person, one man or woman, or 1,000 people, that one of them obviously claims that that I'm property, right? That they can write something on a piece of paper, hand it to somebody else who doesn't know me, and all of a sudden I'm bound to it. See, that's just simple language we're talking here, and then people can realize that. You don't have to get into legal terminologies and stuff. If someone's putting a piece of paper across from you and they're telling you that you owe a debt like a traffic ticket or there's some sort of a order or something on there, well, first you look at that man or woman and you have to understand who they are, right? Well, they're another man or woman that say they're acting for a police department, a law enforcement agency. Well, they've got duties and obligations, but do they have a verified claim against you that you've caused wrong or harm, you've trespassed, there's that word again, against another man or woman? And they're going to say no. Okay, well, what's this piece of paper you're putting in front of me? I didn't create it. They're saying, well, it's a traffic ticket. Well, and then you can start picking a traffic ticket apart, right? Again, I don't like to get too much into the...
So maybe I'll take a test drive on this.
Yeah, well, it's very good. A great man in the United States. I mean, there's incredible people that I've talked to and I've learned from, and we've all morphed and grown through this. And his name is David Straight. He's excellent. Anna Von Reitz in the United States, David Straight, and Carl Lentz. The 3 of them are incredible people. Now, they all come at things a little bit from a different perspective, but when you take a step back and you look at the whole body of their work and what they're doing, they're all on the same page. Carl does it very quickly, like a mouse with a piece of cheese. And Anna and them are a little bit more, I mean, Anna's a grandmother now. She's, as far as I'm concerned, the work she's done for this world, all her research and that, it's all there. She's an open book. And people have attacked her, big time, telling me, she's not a member of the bar and this and that. Well, neither am I. I don't want to be a member of the bar. None of their stuff applies to me or any other man or woman in this world. And that's what you need to understand. Their entire system is operating, JB, on massive fraud because our fellow man doesn't know who they are. Their maximum law is let those deceived be deceived. That could be the mantra for the bar because that's why they're getting all this money for all these services that they're providing. It's all based on fraud, all of it. And when people understand the magnitude of this is why they don't own property like a boat, a car, a home, whatever you've purchased. Go and take a look on title. And I guess that's where we should start. We should really get back to this trespass that occurs at birth, because when that occurs, JB, is at that moment, there's paperwork that's being created when you're a baby, only moments old in a crib or a bed, that you have no consciousness of, that's being created. And your mother and father are trusting. There's a key word, trust. You know, we're in this mess that we're in today is because JB and Christopher here, we've all been trusting in our fellow man and these systems that we were born into, that as they were supposedly being presented to us, that they were actually legitimate, that they were actually doing what they were saying that they're doing. But then we start to see, as you're seeing now, all this conflict is occurring between the people. Well, if these institutions were set up correctly to be by and for the people, that's why all government was created. Remember, the hierarchy goes God or created man and woman created government. And why was government created? To protect the property of man, period.
And they're not.
And they're
They're
not.
taking it from man.
And they're not. And that's why they're using, and how they do away with this is they get shit birth. They create this documentation. That's when they create this legal person, right? It's a corporation. That's what the birth certificate represents. So the difference between the statement of birth, which is the hospital record, and also the birth certificate. They're two different documents. And just like a house, if you're going to build a house, everything always goes back to the foundation. So all of this fraud permeated from that trespass of the hospital record that your mother and father filled out, the doctors and that, they don't know what's being done with that documentation as well when they fill out in the hospital. Then again, they're sending it off to their various state level government and the Register General here in Canada, or various provinces. And then that's where this fraud is really fermented and really increased, and everybody's not told about it. And so when you get older and you buy homes and cars and boats and stuff, you go and use the ID from this service corporation that they created for you, be it your birth certificate, a driver's license, health card, whatever. And now you've put that service corporation's creation, because they created that corporation when you were born, that legal person without your consent. And you've thought all this time that documentation applied to you. No, it didn't. It's actually evidence of a trespass against you, of identity theft. Well, it's the same thing that's happened with these service corporations. You got to take the word government out of there and put the word service corporation. And that was a big word for me, JB. I've been looking at this stuff, like I say, for probably, well, it's 20 years now, but the law side was about 15, I guess I got into. And the big word that really helped tie things for me around, there was a couple of things, and that came from Anna, is when she used the word service corporation. It was like a light that went off in my head. I'm going, oh my goodness, it's so easy now. Because I've always been from a capacity of, how do you explain this to your fellow man simply? And that they can understand. They understand that Burger King or McDonald's, their CEOs can't write orders out and it applies to all we the people, can they? No. They can't order us to stay at home, can they? No. Right? They can't order us to put masks on. No. And it's the same with these service corporations, because as people are starting to learn now, as you've eloquently talked about again, is that the BS meter is starting to go off with the average Joe now. They don't have to have the critical thinking, but something inside them, their internal barometer is going off saying this is wrong. Yeah. So we have to find a way to move forward with it.
So now this isn't conspiracy theory. This is like factual evidence. Like here's your birth certificate. Like there's nothing to be theorizing about it. It's here in front of you. It's something tangible that everybody can look at, relate to, and identify with as far as what this thing is and how it works. So it's like step 1, step 2, step 3. It becomes very easy to understand in that small sense of the word, like the solution and how to get out of it. And because what you're saying is nice, but now picture somebody even like me, you know, like I'm a brave man, but like me walking into a court and having the balls to like confront these authorities which were so indoctrinated to respect and say, no, I'm not this, I am the man, and to this person has trespassed on my property. They're going to be like, you're here to pay a ticket. Are you're going to start making clowning in this courtroom? I'll have you in contempt, that kind of stuff. And people are scared. Naturally, people they buckle to authority. That's why this is all happening right now, because they use those scare tactics and intimidation. And so people just don't want to get in trouble. They don't want to get, arrested and fined. So they just go and do what they're told because they don't want to ruffle the feathers. That's the natural way people are. They don't realize that it's important to actually defy authority. It's important to stand up for justice. They are so conditioned to think that they're being, the right person by doing what they're told, because they don't want to be the person like us where you're causing problems and not doing what you're told. That's how they think. But you have to stand up and fight and defy and be defiant against injustice or a bad authority. So it's hard to get people to do that. But like I just said, like to have the confidence to walk into and be able to stand your ground, because like even Jesse said, he's like, you know, if you go in there by yourself, they're probably just gonna like ignore you or laugh at you because you just don't have the capacity, the knowledge, say like a Carl Lentz, to be able to walk in there and just slap them around with some the correct verbiage. But like you say, also it's simple. It's just keep it simple. It's these are a couple of words. That's all you really need to stand on.
Yep. And we've got to the point now, JB, as you were talking about there, is that this isn't about, we've gone past the point where, because our court systems are all being shut down now, this is all part of it as well, right? We're at the point now, that's why this truth is so important of this trespass, because it affects everybody. And it is also the big ticket for us to easily move these simple claims into a public courthouse to be on the public record and take this entire corruption down, because it is so massive. And the only reason, as you were talking about earlier, I can go into a courtroom and I can hold myself and I'm by myself. But at the end of the day, when other people do it, you're right, the intimidation factor is there. And the whole truth of this matter is that our fellow man and woman should not be put in that position. That should not be happening in our public courthouses. These people know, God, pardon my language, damn well what they're doing. The black robe ones that are higher up, and the lower courts like traffic and stuff, they're just morons. They're not trained in anything about law or whatever. And as again, when people are learning about this stuff, they're trying to go out and fight within the courts now. And I'm saying to everybody, you know, I'm not trying to be a downer, but we don't have time for any of this smaller stuff right now.
Right.
Okay, we've got a train that's barreling down on us where they're going after humanity. And the only way we're going to take it down lawfully is number one, is you have to have first and foremost control of your public courthouse to be able to address something of this magnitude, to get the action in place, to get these people that are out there working in law enforcement to then snap to it and start, you know, taking down these people. But the other side of it is you have to come forward with the evidence. Right. So it's a 2-1 punch right now. And as I say to everyone, the issue right now isn't the common law. It's not the trespass that's occurred against us as birth. It's this colossal lie that's out there right now, the fear that's driving this world. And that's the beauty of knowledge. When you talk about, you know, people, as you said, they cow down when they're in the courts. If you go back to a situation, that's only hope happening, JB, is because our fellow man don't really know who they are. They don't have that full knowledge. When you get that knowledge wipes any fear away. And you start to realize who these people are. And anyone that's been at the forefront of this movement who I've learned from over the last 20 years, or people that I've met, you'll always find, JB, that something very traumatic has happened to them in their life. Either against their family or their children or something. And the mettle of that man or woman, like Anna Von Reitz or Carl or David Straight or whatever, when you understand what their background is and what led them down this path to truly find out this truth, it's really horrific what they've been through. And these people are all incredible what they're doing. You know, David Straight, he's getting like 2 hours sleep a night, I think, right now. So that's why that's why I'm trying to bring him forward to the world, because that's what needs to happen with David. The people need to see, especially in the United States, who he is. Carl and Anna understand what the work that they've been doing and what they're doing, and understand that the solution lies within that. So Carl and them, they didn't know that this is what I was doing up in Canada here. And, you know, we can spin this around. Once I came and get in touch with Jesse, that's why the light went on with me. I started thinking, you know, Jesse, I started telling him, this is what I'm doing in Canada. I says, we need to make this on a global level. I says, we need to bring all the people together. And if we can find a handful of countries and do the exact same action on the exact same day, the whole package together as a collective is incredible, because it's constantly for the next 2-3 months, you know, right from our get-go, it's getting out this message of this trespass that's happening at birth. And then that's just going to start to build. And then by the time we get to the courthouses in the fall, hopefully we'll get there, then we're not going to have ignorant people out front. I don't mean any disrespect to anybody listening, but ignorance is the big enemy here. Everyone outside of that courthouse, and it's also watching online, is going to be educated. They're going to know exactly why we're there. They're going to know the power of, in this moment, of what we're doing, because this is of biblical proportions. When you're talking about every man and woman, right from the second that they're born into this world, they are being killed on paper by this system that's been put in place from a long time ago, which goes directly to the Pope, the Queen, and the central bankers. They're all involved in this. These are the 3 heads of the snake. Yeah. Now they are, believe it or not, I don't go past it, but they are still at the lower level of this, right? There's something else much bigger that's above them that brought all this stuff into it. But we don't need to go into that right now, because, or if we should, until we get first this trespass corrected at the courthouses and restore our public courthouses, because once that happens, JB, this system's toast, right? People like you and myself that have some basic knowledge of wrong and harm that's going on, you're going to have the evidence. You're going to be able to access that public courthouse and start holding the local people accountable. and they're going to snap to it. Trust me, they're no longer going to trespass on people. They're not going to be trying enforcing bylaw things again. Trespass means one thing in this world, is that you can't trespass against your fellow man, which means you can't cause them wrong or harm. You can't be in breach of a contract. You can't administrate or damage their property without right. You know, it's those very simple things. And if you do something outside of that, if you're actually breaching the peace out there, well, you deserve everything you get. I don't care if it's in the legal world or the lawful world, but they've managed to convolute the situation so hard. And that's why traffic court has really been used as an intimidation tool, because it allows interaction to go on between these service corporations that they created, these honorable men and women, to have further interaction with the people and condition them to hammer down on them that we're the authority, blah, blah, blah. What starts to happen in Canada here is that the police officers, the honorable people there, they're starting to recognize as well something's very wrong. And now they're not turning away. These guys say, yep, we know about the trespass with these birth certificates and stuff that's going on. But again, as you said, they're scared for their jobs and that, but everything's coming to a point now where everyone realizes if we don't stop this, there's going to be no jobs. They're coming after all of us. It doesn't matter what your capacity you're acting in. So it's a huge moment here. And that's why the work that you're doing is so important.
The timing of it is perfect. We needed to be pushed. We needed to see the veil needed to be dropped. All this horrific stuff that's going on. It was the only way to get people to really get out of their comfort zone, get to start caring and seeing. Otherwise, we would have just continued to go in our, la-di-da life and just been apathetic to everything. So all this trauma and horror is necessary to get everybody to wake up. So you have to look at it that way. And, there's times where I'm sure we all have our moments where we're like, fuck it, like we're in, this, can it ever happen? Like they're just, the contact tracing now and the technology and then the threats and the this and, the mandates, and they'll stop you here and they'll stop you there and everybody's going along with it. And you're like, I'm like one man in a sea of fucking, robots that are following along. But those are those days. But now seeing like with this isn't what I love about this is like, this is so powerful, this movement, this idea that we're going to get a certain amount of people in a certain amount of countries at the exact same time to execute this plan, this public court proceeding. Now it's like a wave, it's like a tsunami. And it's undeniable. It's like, it's not one person just walking into a traffic court. It's a fucking movement. It's a population, 100,000 people right outside these doors. And it's happening. You're talking about like what's going on here. People are going to see it. They're going to know it. And like you said, it's going to react. And now the global reaction to that is that this is what's happening. Now they want to know more, and then they're going to learn more, and then they're going to feel empowered, because people normally by themselves, actually always by themselves, they just don't want to do anything because they feel powerless. But once they feel like there's an edge, like they've got an edge with the masses, then they get confident, then they get excited, and then they join. And now it becomes a bigger movement. And that's what's happening now. It used to be like a little tiny couple of people. And then we saw in Virginia, this like army or militia. Now people are like, yeah, we're the people, like what, they feel confident. And that's what we need to instill. And this has the nuclear bomb capabilities of just dismantling the system and the chain reaction. It's going to get after that, streamlining, going around all that red tape and just going right to the freaking bullseye. So yeah, the impact and effect, that's the global effect. We just talked about the individual, that's the global. So getting people excited about that, which is what I'm always trying to do, and get more and more people, get them over to the site, get them to sign up. And that's it. Just keep the word out. But I mean, we don't have a date yet, but like the plan, this is the plan, and it's going to, now you want to do it right before the American elections. Like, you think that's kind of like the way to go? Like,
I would like to do it as soon as I could. If I had like I said, 100,000 people today, right now around me, I'd be at the courthouse right now. Yeah. I wouldn't be waiting for any other country to come on board, because this just has to happen once in our world. But what I also realize is, and this is why people, I say it again, you can't put the cart before the horse. Yes, people are antsy because all this, stuff that's coming down on them, but we're in the knowledge phase. We're in the connected phase right now. Right. We're just starting to connect with this basic conversation of a trespass that happened at birth. So that's why the next 2 months are very important. As we roll out more information and more of these videos are done and more communication, then people will start to simply understand the seamless connectivity and why this conversation, why this truth is so important to all of us. And then we can start to implement when the court dates are going to be and where they're going to be, which courthouses. But again, we don't need to talk about that stuff because it's just right now I'm not saying with us, but I'm saying for the average person hearing this for the first time, they don't need to be concerned, even though they're concerned about when it's going to happen. Just know that it's in the works now. And we're being transparent. You're seeing the numbers start to pick up. Right, on all our channels and all within this movement. And once this hits a very minimum critical mass of about 2 million people in the world, that's when I believe we're going to really see this snap. And that's what's going to happen, I believe, by the middle of September. It's really good. We've got a bunch of videos coming out with interviews. We've got some short little documentaries to really hammer this home. And I think by that time, the police are going to be so fed up as well because they've been put in a position now.
Yeah.
It's all going to come to a head. So like I said, when we're all standing there shoulder to shoulder in these conversations that we're having, JB, it's just everyone's there in the capacity of a man or a woman, period. You're not there acting in any role or representing anything else. Now, does that mean we're going to have first line responders with us on that day? Absolutely. I wish to enter that courthouse with at least 30 officers on each side of me so that everybody's seeing this in real time, that, this is a moment in our world when a very powerful truth is being brought out into the light, a very simple truth. And we just have to bring that trespass that occurs when we're born as a child in a hospital forward. And once the people understand the paperwork and all this fraud that's going on, just surrounding that one act, it exposes the bar for what's going on. It exposes our public courthouses for what's actually occurring now. And no one's going to be bamboozled anymore when they walk in. No. Everyone's going to realize, is this a lawful proceeding or a legal proceeding? Well, if it's legal, it's got nothing to do with me, and you guys better stop because all this paperwork you've put into your court system is all based on fraud. That's where the constructive fraud comes in, right?
Imagine what everybody is completely versed and understands where they're at and just continues to go about their lives, and like the courts know that they can't get over on us no more. They have to abide by that.
It's like, again, McDonald's drag you into court saying that you owe them a debt. You owe them some sort of taxation to McDonald's. Really? Show me this contract where I entered into with your service corporation. It's done. It ends right there. They got to produce the obligation. And then you say, well, who's the man or woman moving this court? Well, if they say, well, I'm the lawyer for the sale. Well, wait a minute. Were you claiming, Bob or Susie, that I've caused you wrong or harm? You've got a verified claim before this court that I owe you a debt. Oh, well, no. You're the Syria. Well, you've got no standing then, Jack, because I want you under oath or affirmation, because everything that comes out of your trap is going to be either truthful or you're going to be held liable for it. And the judges know that, especially in divorce court. If you're in there and you want to get rid of the other side's divorce lawyers and you can't afford a lawyer, you just simply say, who's this man speaking? Is he under oath or affirmation? Does he have firsthand knowledge of everything that he's speaking to be true? And the judge is going to look at him and say, well, do you? And the attorney's going to say, well, no, because he's representing, he's reading. Well, then sit the F down. You got no standing now, buddy. You're out of this court. And then you're just standing there with you and that other man or woman that's moving it. Even if it's in a legal world, you can always flip it back to the common law side. And that's how you do it. Right? But you got to have the mettle of the man. You have to have the knowledge first. And as you said, if people don't have this foundational stuff, they get intimidated, they get pushed around, and they come out of there. But again,
not that hard.
It's all going to disappear, JB, once we get this done at the courthouse. All this nonsense stops. So
we'll do the heavy lifting, and then everyone else can freaking just ride the coattails.
No Absolutely. Problem. Absolutely, brother.
All right, brother. Great talking with you. Great combo, great interview. And we'll do more. There's going to be more.
Definitely. The more, whenever I can fit them in, I'm all there for you, brother. And we can start to hone down on things. Like I say, the message first and foremost has got to be the COVID lie, right? Because that's the most important thing people need to see right now, because that's what's running our world, the fear and everything. And then you got to bring in the trespass with the common law side and the solution. And when they merge together, it's a simple way, because as you know, we don't have time to have people to be listening for like weeks and months to learn and educate this stuff. That's why this is simple.
Well, like you said, the COVID is the power, it's the leverage, it's what everybody identifies with, and what everybody wants to get over, get rid of, and break away from. So that in and of itself is just, that's enough to basically get everybody on board. It's like, how do we get rid of this fucking COVID lie and this power trip that they're playing on us? You know, how many friggin' cases in New Zealand, even in Uganda? I just saw a stat for Uganda. There's like 43 million people. I don't know what the stat was, but there was 19 cases of COVID in that country because they eat hydroxychloroquine like it's candy, because there's so much malaria in that country that they have no cases. And it's like, nobody's recognizing this. There's like 1900, 19,000. It's 19 total cases in that country because they're all on hydroxychloroquine, and it works, and it's cheap, and it's accessible, but Big Pharma will not allow it to happen. So perfect example right there. Evidence. It's all going to come crashing down. All right, man. We'll keep the body rolling. I will talk to you soon, and good luck to you and Jesse for the rest of this trip, and we'll keep it rolling. All right.
Sounds great, JP. Glad you're
Yeah,
on board. Glad to have you here.
you and Jesse on next time.
Yeah, that sounds great.
Cool. All righty.